most veterans are leaving money and benefits on the table, not because the VA is out to get them, but because they don't even realize what the most common claims are. That's the real tragedy in all this. It's not always the corruption or the malice. Often, it's just simply a lack of awareness. Think about it. The VA processes millions of disability claims every single year. And over time, certain patterns start to emerge. There are conditions that appear again and again, like tinnitus, knee problems, back injuries, PTSD, migraines, hearing loss. These are not rare or exotic cases. They're the bread and butter of the system, the claims that the VA practically expects to see at this point. But here's the catch. If you don't know that these are the conditions that most commonly get approved, you won't think to document them. You won't think to connect them properly to your service. You may not even file for them in the first place. And so what happens? You walk away with a rating that's far lower than what you should have had, or no rating at all. And over a lifetime, that can mean tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars that you and your family never see. Money that could have gone towards stability, healthcare, education, or housing. The VA system is, in many ways, predictable. It's a bureaucracy. It operates on checklists, rating criteria, diagnostic codes, and statistics. And while that may sound cold, there's actually some power in that predictability. Because if you know the game board, you can learn how to play it the right way. If you understand what usually is the often most awarded, you can anticipate the VA's moves, their next moves. So you can prepare the right medical evidence. You can build stronger arguments. I always tell veterans, listen, this isn't about gaming the system. It's about learning the system. When you walk into the fight blind, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But when you know the terrain, when you know which conditions are most often recognized, suddenly you can build your claim like a ranger plans a mission with foresight, strategy, and the right tools. And that's the difference between the line of a denied claim and a life-changing approval. When we start talking about VA disability, it's important to realize that the VA isn't just pulling decisions out of thin air. Every single year, the VA actually publishes something called the Annual Benefits Reports, or ABR for short. This report lays out in black and white what condition veterans are most commonly service-connected for. It's not a mystery, it's actually public data. And if you take the time to study those numbers, a very clear picture starts to emerge. Now, according to the VA's own data, there are 10 conditions that dominate the landscape. They're the same year after year, and millions of veterans across the country are already service-connected for them. Let me walk you through the list. You've got tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears. This is the single most common disability. More than 2.7 million vets are service-connected for tinnitus. Why? Because almost everyone in the uniform has been exposed to some form of weapons, engines, explosions, aircraft, or heavy machinery. You might not think of it as a disability at first, but that constant ringing is real. It's measurable, and its impact really affects your sleep and your focus and mental health. Second, there's usually what they call knee limitation of flexion. If you've ever had trouble bending your knees, you've had swelling, stiffness, or reduced range of motion, you're in good company. Marching, rucking, running on hard surfaces, jumping out of vehicles or aircraft, they all destroy knee joints. This is one of the most common musculoskeletal ratings in the VA system. Then there's hearing loss. Right behind tinnitus, you'll find hearing loss. The two go hand in hand usually. Weapon ranges, flight decks, convoys, artillery. Service members spend careers in environments that destroy hearing. And yet, many vets just assume it's normal aging and never claim it. And then there's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. This one needs no introduction, right? PTSD is one of the most recognized mental health conditions among veterans. It comes from combat, from military sexual trauma or MST, from accidents, and from cumulative stress over time. And yet, many vets still feel stigma around claiming it. And the data really shows that. You're not alone. Hundreds of thousands have successfully claimed PTSD, so you should do it. And then, what's number 5? You've got lumbosacral strain or cervical strain next. Back and neck issues, right? How many times have you heard of that say, my back is shot? Wearing body armor, carrying heavy packs, parachuting, repetitive physical training, it all takes a toll. The VA starts to recognize that, and back and neck conditions are consistently in the top 5. And then there's migraines. These aren't just your daily headaches. Many veterans develop migraines from head injuries, blast exposures, or even secondary to PTSD or sleep disorders. Migraines can be prostrating, which means they actually knock you flat, and the VA will compensate that accordingly. And then you've got sciatic nerve paralysis. This is that shooting pain that runs down your leg, the numbness, the weakness. That's sciatica, and it's usually caused by spinal or disc issues. The VA rates it under paralysis of the sciatic nerve, and it's one of the most common nerve-related disabilities claimed. Next is limitation of motion in the arm. You're talking shoulders, elbows, wrists. They all take a beating in service. Lifting ammo cans, repetitive training, push-ups, pull-ups, injuries in the field. It all adds up. Reduced range of motion in the arms is among the top VA claims. And then there's limitation of motion in the ankle. Think about sprains, fractures, rolled ankles, jumping out of trucks or helicopters. Ankles rarely heal 100% after repeated injuries, and limited motion is a common long-term result. And the number 10 is scars. It's last but not least, right? They may seem minor, but scars from burns, surgery, shrapnel, or training accidents, they can be compensatable. Thousands of veterans get ratings for scars every single year. And here's the takeaway. If you're struggling with these issues, you're not alone. Millions of veterans already have these exact ratings. It's not unusual. It's not something you're making up. It's not something you should just push through silently. The VA's own data shows that these are the conditions that most often get approved. So when you look at your own body and your own service, and you recognize some of these conditions in your story, that should be a light bulb moment, right? These aren't fringe claims. They are mainstream claims. And if millions of other veterans are successfully claiming them, then you should feel empowered to pursue the benefits you've earned as well. Here's why this really matters. If you don't understand which conditions are most commonly awarded by the VA, you're walking into the claims process blind. And when you're blind, you're vulnerable. If you don't know this information, here's what's going to happen. You risk missing secondary conditions. You might claim a bad back, but completely overlook the sciatica or the knee pain that comes years later from overcompensation. You might claim PTSD, but not the migraines or sleep apnea that has been aggravated by it. These secondary conditions are often where the real compensation is, and ignoring them leaves tens of thousands of dollars on the table. You risk low ratings too. Maybe you get service connected, but the VA gives you only 10%, when in reality, your symptoms justify 50%. Why? Because you didn't know how to present the right evidence, or you didn't realize how the VA evaluates severity. That 40% difference isn't just a number. It's the difference between scraping by and being able to take care of yourself and your family. You risk years of appeals as well. Every veteran I've worked with knows someone who's been stuck in the appeals process, held for 5, 10, even 15 years. The system is clogged, and if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to be adding yourself to that backlog. That's years of waiting while bills pile up, health declines, and opportunities slip away. But if you do know this, the game changes. You can anticipate C&P examiner pushback, you'll know what questions they'll try to trap you with, and you'll be ready, right? You'll understand how to document your evidence correctly. Not just a doctor's note, but a medical nexus that ties your service to your condition in language the VA just can't ignore. You can line up your nexus letters strategically, hitting the VA with the strongest possible case right out the gate. Let me give you an example. A veteran comes in with tinnitus. That constant ringing in the ears, right? He files for tinnitus and nothing else. The VA grants him the 10%, and that's it. But here's what he didn't know. Tinnitus and hearing loss go hand in hand. The same noise exposure that caused the ringing almost certainly caused measurable hearing loss. If he'd known to file for both, he might have been doubled or tripled his compensation. Over a lifetime, that difference can add up to hundreds of thousands of tax-free dollars. That's money for his healthcare, his family, and his retirement. But because he didn't know, it's gone. And this isn't just about money, right? It's about dignity. It's about recognition. When the VA underrates you or denies you, it feels like they're denying our service, denying our sacrifice. That eats at people, right? It leads to bitterness, depression, even giving up on the process altogether. I've met vets who walked away after one denial and never filed again, even though they were entitled to life-changing benefits. Here's the truth. The VA system rewards knowledge. It's not the toughest soldier who wins the claims battle. It's the one who walks in prepared with evidence, with strategy, with support. When you know the most common claims and how they connect, you stop fighting blind and start fighting smart. And that's the difference between spending the next decade appealing denials versus locking the benefits you earn now for life. Now, let me ground this in some real stories because data is powerful, right? But stories are what stick. I worked with a National Guard soldier, an infantry. He was tough as nails, the kind of guy who never complained in service. He had degenerative disc disease in his back, arthritis in knees, and chronic hip pain. He filed VA claims 3 separate times. 3 times the VA said no. Why? Because his service tree records were silent. No sick call visits, no MRI while in uniform, no official paper trail, right? But here's the thing. Anyone who's been in an infantry unit knows that those records were silent, right? I mean, soldiers don't go to sick call for every ache and pain. You tape it up, you pop Motrin, you suck it up, and you drive on. That's the culture of the military. I know because I've lived it. I was a ranger. I deployed multiple times. I saw guys sprain ankles on jumps, twist knees on ruck marches, wrench their backs on patrol, and still refuse to report it because they didn't want to be pulled off the mission, or they didn't want to be looked at like they were weak. That unspoken rule, don't complain, don't be the weak link, is the reason so many service treatment records are empty. So when this Guard soldier came to me, we reframed his entire story. We didn't just send in medical jargon. We explained the military culture. We explained why his records were silent. We painted the picture of what repeated infantry service does to his body over time. We supported it with a strong nexus letter tying his current conditions to his service. And guess what? The VA finally connected the dots. Not only did he win his claim, but he ended up rated at 100%. That's the difference the right story, the true story, can make. And I've seen this pattern play out again and again and again. Take tinnitus and PTSD. One veteran came to me with debilitating ringing in his ears. He had already been granted 10% for tinnitus, but nobody had ever connected how that ringing was wrecking his sleep. That insomnia fed into his PTSD, which spiraled into anxiety and depression. He thought tinnitus was just a nuisance claim, 10% and done. But once we showed how it aggravated his mental health, how it was part of a bigger picture, the VA had to acknowledge the impact. Suddenly, what seemed like a minor claim became a key part of his overall rating. Or take the case of a female veteran I worked with. She struggled with migraines. She served in a high-stress role with constant exposure to noise and long shifts. Over time, the migraines became prostrating, the kind that knock you flat in a dark room for hours until they resolve. She tried to push through, but the attacks affected her career and her quality of life. For years, the VA downplayed it. But when we connected her migraines back to service-related triggers and showed how they overlapped with her already service-connected conditions, the VA had no choice but to take it seriously. Her rating went up, and for the first time, she felt like someone acknowledged the reality she had been living with all those years. Now, let me step out of these client stories for a second and share my own story. Listen, I served in the 75th Ranger Regiment in Special Operations, multiple combat deployments. I lived the culture of silence. If you were hurting, you pushed through it. If you couldn't push through it, you were replaced. Simple as that. I developed my own injuries, my own PTSD, my own struggles. And like so many of you, I turned to maladaptive coping. I self-medicated. I spiraled. And at one point, I was at my rock bottom. When I finally went through the VA system myself, I realized just how broken the process was for veterans like me. The system wasn't designed to hear our unspoken stories. The paperwork, it couldn't capture the culture that we lived in. And that's why I've made it my mission to translate these experiences you've had into language the VA understands, to bridge that gap between the reality of service and the bureaucracy of claims. So when I tell you these stories, I'm not speaking as some outsider. I'm speaking as a physician, yes, but also as a ranger, a veteran, and someone who's been in the trenches on both sides of the system. I have seen how the culture of silence hides these injuries. I've seen how the VA overlooks the obvious because it isn't spelled out in black and white. And I've seen how the right story, the right evidence, and the right advocacy can turn denial after denial into life-changing approval. That's why these examples matter. They're not just some random anecdotes. They're proof that you're not alone. If you've been denied, if you've been minimized, if your records are silent, that doesn't mean your story isn't real. It just means the VA hasn't heard it the right way yet. And that's where the strategy comes in. The first piece of advice I'll give you is simple but powerful. Know the list. What list am I talking about? It's the list of the 10 most common service-connected disabilities recognized by the VA. This isn't a secret. The VA publishes it every single year in that annual benefits report. And year after year, it's the same conditions that come out on top. Tinnitus, knee limitations, hearing loss, PTSD, back and neck issues, migraines, sciatica, arm and ankle limitations, and scars. And why does this matter? Because when you understand what conditions are most commonly awarded, you begin to see your own service and your own health in a new light. You stop asking, am I alone in this? Am I making too much out of it? And you realize, no, this is the rule, not the exception. Millions of other veterans have walked the same path. Here's where the real teaching comes in. Cross-reference this with the list of your own service and your own medical records. Take a moment to think about your MOS or occupation, your deployments, your training, your day-to-day duties. Ask yourself, did I spend years on ranges, near aircraft, artillery, or heavy machinery? If so, chances are I have tinnitus and some level of hearing loss. Was I in the infantry, airborne, armor, or any MOS that wears heavy gear on my joints? Then I probably have knee, hip, ankle, or back issues that could be traced directly back to service. Did I carry heavy gear, wear body armor, or jump out of aircraft? I mean, that's neck and lumbar strain all day long. Was I exposed to combat trauma, military sexual trauma, or high-stress environments? Then PTSD or anxiety disorders are not just possible, they're likely probable. Have I dealt with headaches, migraines, or sleep issues since service? Those might connect to head injuries, noise exposure, or even secondary to your PTSD. Most veterans never take this inventory. They wait until something is unbearable. Then they file one claim. And by doing that, they miss the bigger picture, the web of connected conditions that could be and should be service-connected. Let me give you another real example. I had a paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne who only filed for lumbar spine issues after years of airborne jumps. He thought that was his only condition, right? But when we sat down and cross-referenced, it turned out he also had chronic knee pain from the landings, sciatica from the back injuries, and even sleep apnea that was aggravated by his pain and weight gain after service. Once we identified these, we built a comprehensive claim. That's the difference between 120% rating and a combined 90% rating. Life-changing. And here's the practical piece. Go get your VA records right now. Pause this video if you need to. Pull up your blue button report for My Healthy Vet. And you can find it on va.gov in your claim history. Look up your civilian medical records if you have those, whatever you have access to. And as I go through this list, check off what applies to you. If you've been dealing with ringing in your ears, don't ignore it anymore. If your back locks up when you sit too long, write it down. If your migraines knock you out for hours, that's not just part of life. It's a rateable condition. The reason I'm telling you all this and to do this is because awareness is the first step. Once you know what conditions are commonly recognized, you stop leaving things unclaimed. You stop telling yourself it's just part of getting older or everyone has back pain, right? No, it's not just age, it's service. It's wear and tear on your body and mind from years of doing what this country has asked you to do, and the VA recognizes that. So here's your call to action. Pause the video right now. Pull up your VA records. Cross-reference them against the top 10 list above. Make notes. Circle the ones that apply to you. When you do this, you're not just identifying claims. You're taking the first step toward building a strong, comprehensive case that reflects the full impact of your service. Now, the second piece of advice is this. Document everything properly. I can't emphasize this enough. The VA system runs on evidence. The rater who reviews your file doesn't know you, doesn't know your story, and isn't going to take your word for it. They're looking for three things, always three. Is there a current diagnosis? You have to prove you actually have the condition right now. Not my back hurts sometimes, but a medical diagnosis. Degenerative disc disease, knee arthritis, PTSD, migraines, tinnitus, whatever it may be. And second, you got to have an in-service event. Something that happened while you were in uniform. It could be documented in your service treatment records, a line of duty report, deployment records, or even your battle buddy you remembers who wrote a witness statement. The VA wants a clear moment or a pattern that connects your condition to your service. And three, a nexus event. This is important. This is the bridge, the medical opinion that attaches your claim condition to your in-service event, to your military service. Without a nexus, even the most obvious conditions will get denied. I've seen veterans with blown out knees from parachute jumps get denied simply because there wasn't a medical opinion saying, yes, this is at least as likely as not related to service. That one missing sentence can be the difference between 0% and 100%. Now here's the reality. Even the most common conditions on the VA's top 10 list get denied all the time if the evidence isn't lined up right. Just because tinnitus is the most common claim doesn't mean yours will be approved without documentation. Same with PTSD, back pain, or migraines. The VA doesn't connect the dots for you. You have to hand them the completed picture. So how do you document properly? Well, keep copies of your service treatment records. Don't assume the VA has everything. Records will get lost. Pages go missing. I've seen files where entire years of medical history were absent. Get your own copies and start to organize them. Collect civilian medical records. If you've been seeing a doctor since leaving service, those records matter. They show continuity of care, proof that your condition didn't magically appear years later. And gather buddy statements. This is one of the most overlooked tools veterans have. If your records are silent because you didn't go to sick call, have a fellow service member you served with write a statement. Listen, I served with him in Afghanistan. I remember when he injured his knee on that patrol. He kept pushing through it, but complained of pain for months. That kind of first-hand testimony, that can fill in the gaps and add credibility to your story. Next, you may need to get a strong nexus letter. This is the keystone sometimes. A well-written nexus letter from a qualified medical professional, like myself, ties it all together in language the VA understands. The words, "it is at least as likely as not," is the key, that the veteran's condition is related to their military service. Without that phrase, even solid claims can be denied. Let me give you another example. I worked with a veteran who had clear PTSD symptoms. Diagnosed by multiple clinicians, psychiatrists, he served in combat, his DD-214 showed deployments, but his service treatment records didn't mention anything about PTSD. Because back then, you didn't report it. His first claim was denied. Why? Missing nexus. Once we proved medical opinion that directly tied his current diagnosis to his service events, the VA had no choice but to award service connection. So here's the takeaway. Don't leave your claim to chance. Think like the VA. Ask yourself, do I have a diagnosis? Do I have an in-service event? Do I have a nexus tying them together? If one piece is missing, you got to fix it before you file, because right now this needs to be your call to action, right? So after this video, go through all of your records. Do you have your diagnosis in writing? Do you have evidence of an event in service? Whether in records or buddy statements, do you have a nexus? If not, that's your homework. Start filling those gaps in a day. Don't wait until the VA denies you, because once you're in the appeals backlog, you're looking at years and years of waiting. The third piece of advice, and usually it's the hardest for some veterans to hear. Don't fight alone. I know the instinct. We're trying to be self-reliant, to tough things out, not be vulnerable, to figure it out for ourselves. Asking for help can sometimes feel like a weakness, but the VA claims process isn't about toughness anymore. It's about strategy, paperwork, and precision. And going at it alone can cost you years of frustrations, thousands of dollars in missed compensation, and more stress than you already carry. Here's the truth. The VA doesn't make this process easy. There are pages of regulations, diagnostic codes, and rating criteria. There are deadline forms and medical evidence requirements. I mean, even experienced veterans who've been through the process before often get tripped up. That's why leveraging experts isn't just a good idea. Sometimes it's essential. So who can help you? Medical experts for nexus letters. Listen, a well-written nexus letter can be the difference between approval and denial, but it has to be written in the right language, using the right standard, at least as likely as not. Doctors who do not understand the VA system might write something clinically correct, but useless for the claims process. That's why you need someone who knows both medicine and the VA process. DBQs, or Disability Benefits Questionnaires. Now, these are standardized VA forms that allow doctors or providers to document your condition in a way that lines up with the VA rating criteria. Submitting a DBQ alongside your nexus letter makes it much harder for the VA to downplay or ignore your evidence. Maybe you need an accredited rep or VSO officer or a trusted advisor or consultant. There are people out there who dedicate their careers to navigating this VA maze. We use Kavlin Custom Solutions, when we direct veterans for help. I mean, these are people that can help file paperwork, track deadlines, and represent you in appeals. The key is to choose someone transparent and trustworthy. Now, let's talk about the other side of this, the predators. Unfortunately, the VA's claim space is full of what we call claim sharks. These are companies that promise quick wins, but then they trap veterans in contracts that take a percentage of your back pay, lock you into recurring fees, or charge you thousands of dollars for boilerplate cookie cutter nexus letters. They profit off your pain. And the worst part, many of these letters that are churned out, they're just junk. Cut and paste templates the VA spots a mile away. Veterans end up paying outrageous amounts for these worthless pieces of evidence. That's why I always stress, affordable and transparent help exists out there. You don't have to choose between going at it completely alone or handing over half your benefits to a predatory company. I mean, there are organizations, accredited reps, even non-accredited reps in veteran-led services that put you first. And let me make one thing absolutely clear. Your VA benefits are earned. They are not a handout. They are not charity, and they are not welfare. They are compensation for the injuries and sacrifices you sustained while serving this country. You put your body and your mind on the line. This is the nation keeping its promise to you. So you should never feel guilty for pursuing the full benefits you deserve. And don't ever let anyone tell you you're gaming the system. Here's your next call to action. If you're sitting on the fence, trying to do it all yourself, stop. Reach out for help. Find someone who knows how to write a proper nexus letter, who can guide you through DBQs, who can stand in your corner when the VA pushes back. Don't hand over your benefits to claim sharks or nexus mills, but don't stay isolated either. The veterans who win this battle are the ones who build a team around them. A team that fights just as hard for them as they once fought for their brothers and sisters. Listen, you already carried the weight of service alone. You don't have to carry the weight of this fight alone, too. So here's where I want you to leave today. We've just walked through the 10 most common VA disabilities, and hopefully a few light bulbs went off for you. Maybe you recognized yourself in tinnitus or back pain or migraines. Maybe you saw yourself and your story reflected in PTSD or in the wear and tear injuries that come with years of ruck marching, jumps, or long shifts on hard surfaces. But here's the real kicker. Knowing the list is just the beginning. Understanding what conditions are common gives you a map. It shows you where other veterans have already fought and won. But here's the reality. Just because you know what conditions are most often claimed, that doesn't mean the VA will roll over and hand you an approval. Far from it. The VA process is a minefield, and the veterans who come out on top aren't just the ones who know what to file for, but the ones who know how to prove it. You see, that's where so many veterans stumble. You can have the diagnosis, you can have the symptoms, you can even have the service record proof. But if you don't know how to connect the dots, if you don't know how to present the evidence in a way the VA just can't ignore, then what do? You risk getting denied, or worse, underrated. And those denials aren't just paperwork. Again, they're years of stress, financial strain, and missed opportunities for care. So let me raise the stakes for you one more time. Get the list right is step one. But step two is mastering the proof. And that's where we're headed next. In my next video, I'm going to break down all this for you, right? In plain language. So, what I want to do is answer the question, how do you actually prove your condition is service connected? So I'll cover the three things the VA is always looking for: diagnosis, in-service event, and the nexus event. I'll show you how to gather the kind of evidence that wins claims instead of dragging you through years and years of denials or appeals. If you've ever asked yourself, how do I make the VA believe me? Or what exactly do they need to see in my case, in my records, to get service connected? That's the question that we'll be answering in the next video that I don't want you to miss. So smash that like button below, subscribe today, and if you like more of this content, follow the next video. Until next time, stay mission ready.